the informal education that I gave myself through learning and wanting to better my life has definitely massively improved my life. And that education, to my surprise, was free. Today's video is sponsored by my Patreons at my Patreon page at Mignon Cobra TV. If you wish to help out my channel, consider checking it out. And if not, then just help me out with the algorithm by giving this video a thumbs up and a subscribe. Hey there, my handsome and pretty little Cobras, and welcome back to the Cobra's Nest. For those of you who are new, my name is Mignon Cobra and I make minimalism videos. Today is a minimalism video that I've been putting off for years to film, and that is the privilege of minimalism and what it means for you. So without further ado, let's just get into the video. Let's get it, let's go. Woo. I put off making this video for a really long time. I kind of wanted a bit before I became more established as a credible minimalist before I decided to open my mouth and talk about this topic. I also chewed on it a lot. I got this idea many years ago. For some context, I've been a minimalist for 6 years, and I came across this idea, I think, in the middle stages of my minimalism. I read that minimalism is a privilege for the well-to-do. And before that, I didn't know that. I just saw minimalism. Oh, this looks like a great idea. Let's just do it. I'm gonna save so much money not buying shit. And I became pretty financially stable doing this. So when I read that article, that I was like, oh, had no one ever thought to consider that maybe the reason they're rich is because they became minimalists? And so by the time you got there, it looks like, oh, they're rich and they're minimalists. I'm here to tell you, as living proof, as somebody who was lower income, I don't think that minimalism is for the rich. The idea that you can conquer yourself, as Plato once said, is something that anybody can do. It doesn't matter your class. You can overcome this desire for more material things, and that doesn't have to come from already having a lot of money in the bank in order to feel secure. It's going to be a really long life work to overcome, especially if you're poor, this desire for more material things, luxury things, material comforts, because you may feel like you grew up without them. But I'm here to tell you that it's worthwhile in the end. Number one, it's for the rich. My personal take on it is, no, I don't think it's only for the rich. I really do think that minimalism is for everybody. I can use myself as an example. I came from the lower class, the lower working class, and I embraced minimalism, and it's been wonderful. I think that you can only enjoy minimalism if you've invested in your mind. I think there needs to be that underlying level of education to be able to enjoy that. I think that's where the differences, or I guess that gap occurs. I think that a lot of the well-to-do tend to be educated. I mean, not everybody who's rich is educated, but let's just assume that the majority of people who embrace minimalism that are well-to-do, I also think that they are educated. And I think that minimalism is more something that can be embraced because of the level of knowledge that you have. And this is a Buddhistic principle. Suffering, poverty, and ignorance occur together. So I think that, yes, somebody who is of the lower income class can enjoy minimalism, but they're gonna have to do a lot of growth, mental and emotional growth, to overcome that base desire for material abundance. Because I think a lot of us, especially if you grow up poor, who doesn't want more material things? So that brings me into my next point, that minimalism, I think, can really only truly be achieved as something for everybody, and that is through education. I'll use myself as an example. The wealth that I invested in was my mind. So I learned a lot about Zen and detaching myself from my material possessions, or my self-worth on material possessions. I learned about stoicism, like how to be, a badass and enjoy hardship and grow as a person from that. I learned about financial independence. I learned a lot about a lot of things that was able to give me the foundation to relinquish that grip that we have on wanting more material possessions and my self-worth on expensive and luxurious things, that really only came about through education. So I think that the only way to be able to embrace minimalism, if you didn't have the privilege to be born rich, to be able to, I guess, come to that naturally. Buddha himself, he was a rich prince before he became a Buddhist and renounced all his material possessions. I'm not saying you shouldn't or can't have material abundances later in life. I think you can. Rich Dad Poor Dad said it quite well. You should invest in assets first. You should invest in luxuries last, and then later down the road. If you want to have 1, 2, 3, whatever material abundances, you can, but you can enjoy them in a better place, which is how I think that the rich, quote unquote, minimalists of the upper class enjoy their wealth and their possessions. And that brings me to my next point. Another criticism of it, that the poor can't afford to declutter. because they can't afford to rebuy. And I completely agree with that statement. And my answer to that is through, again, education. You have to learn how to carefully and responsibly declutter. When I decluttered, there wasn't as much info on minimalism, and I irresponsibly got rid of a lot of things, and I really wasn't in any position to rebuy it, and it was quite careless. So I do agree in that sense that if you don't have a guiding hand with decluttering, especially in the lower class, and you just get rid of a lot of things and you can't afford to rebuy it, that is very irresponsible. And yes, you really don't have the luxury. I like to think that most people not only just don't have the luxury, but that's just not something that I think many people should be doing. We shouldn't be irresponsible with your decluttering. It's not a privilege to declutter. Decluttering is an active choice that you make to let go of things in your life that no longer serve you. So if you have mistaken decluttering for a frivolous activity where you can just start checking all of your things, you're missing the point of or the true essence of why you're decluttering in the first place. And if we are seeing it as something that we are indulging, an excessive indulgence of ridding ourselves and just chucking of our material possessions that you might see that some of the more well-to-do do use, I don't think that that's minimalism. I think that's just being wasteful. The two should not be confused. Okay, and number 4, now, what do I think that the average person can do about minimalism and it being a privilege? Let's just assume that minimalism is a privilege for the rich, okay? So what can the average person do about it? Well, the informal education that I gave myself through learning and wanting to better my life and has definitely massively improved my life. And that education, to my surprise, was free. The things that you have can be taken away from you. And I have seen one minimalist, she was a Swedish minimalist, her house burned down and she lost everything. What's in your mind can't be taken away from you. Your material possessions can be confiscated by the government. You could lose it. It wears out. It can be lost. It can ruin. But what is in your mind is the thing that will set you free. That's the thing that's going to enrich your life the most. Material things do help life be more comfortable, but it's the investment in your mind and in oneself that is the true richness of minimalism, in my opinion. First and foremost, this is rather ridiculous, but it would be ignorant and naive of me to claim that there are definitely a lot of barriers to being able to embrace minimalism healthily or affordably at a lower level. But I think that the advice that I can give as somebody who has come or is coming from the lower end of the socioeconomic scale is that the only thing that is going to set you free is your education. And I know that I've made a lot of videos ragging on my education was a waste of money. Yes, perhaps. But the informal education that I gave myself through learning and wanting to better my life and learning from those around me has definitely massively improved my life. And that education, to my surprise, was free. I read books from the library, and I watched videos on YouTube, and I read articles online on free blogs. My brain functioned in a way that I no longer felt that my biggest treasure were my material possessions. I felt like, yo, I have so much in my mind to help grow my life in such intangible way in an abstract world that I no longer felt that I needed to be investing in material things. It didn't have the same pull because I felt like there was a better use for my time and my money than accumulating material possessions. And number 5 is this idea that having less stuff and desiring less stuff is going to set anyone free. It doesn't matter what class you are, if you're rich or if you're poor. But I think especially if you're poor, because I think a lot of us are poor because of the crap that we buy. That's what kept me poor. I wasted so much money in my youth on such dumb and frivolous things. And I'm not saying, and I'm not hating on material possessions, and I'm not hating on essential things. I'm talking about the frivolous things that, you and I, let's be real. You didn't need that 5th pair of shoes, and you didn't need to go to the store on Saturday to buy more useless stuff sitting in your closet with the tag still on it. This is not a poor rich person issue. This is you can't control yourself, and you have a lot of underlying issues and you haven't addressed it, so you use shopping as a band-aid issue. I know that sounds kind of tough, but we're having a real talk here, right? I think a lot of people are where they are economically because of 2 aspects. One, they invested in themselves, so they're able to generate more income for themselves. And on the flip side, they're not buying a bunch of crap. You can be quite well off financially with a low income just by not buying dumb stuff. And that's the example that I am. I'm trying now to be on the flip side, which is to generate more income. But I've seen that it can be done by just wanting and desiring less. I'm not saying you can't have nice things. I have nice things, but I'm intentional about it. And at the core of it, how did I desire less things? I worked on myself. A lot of the things that we want are just band-aids for our underlying desires. I used to buy workout clothes because I wanted to be fit. I had like needs inside that were just not being met. And once you address those things, you'll find that internal validation, and you won't need to rely on material things to get it from you. You'll invest more in yourself because you'll love yourself more, because you don't feel like you're incomplete without all that material junk. Okay, so that is my personal take on the privilege of minimalism. If you agree with this, comment down below your thoughts on what do you think. Is minimalism a privilege, or do you think that everyone has access to it, or maybe they don't have equal access to it? Leave your comments down below, and while you're down there, hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching. Bye!